is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
This is Radioheads. Broadcasting live on DallasCowboys.com and the official Dallas Cowboys app. Now, your hosts, Tyler Clutts, Kristi Scales, and Brad Sham.
And welcome, everybody, to the very first edition of Radioheads. I'm the last guy, he said, and thank you very much for being with us, and really delighted to have the little engine that could, the Cowboys Radio Network sideline reporter Kristi Scales with us. Thank you for making all this happen.
Oh, this is going to be great. And, we were going to name the show Kristi and the Two Clutses, but we kind of got overruled by that.
I think it would have been appropriate. We may change that yet. I am personally delighted to have Tyler Clutts involved doing this because you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've been trying to convince Tyler to take steps into the broadcasting business. How long? When was the last time you played football?
2015 was the last season. So,
when did I start saying you should be doing this?
It would have probably been 2014 while I was still playing.
Yeah, there you go. And I didn't mean that you should be doing that instead of this at the time.
I don't know. It's debatable.
I always enjoyed talking football with Tyler in the locker room, on talk shows, and then life in general. And so I think you're a natural at this. And so we're going to be here almost every Monday at 3 o'clock. Probably won't be here Monday, 3 o'clock on the day the Cowboys play a Monday night game against the Giants in New Jersey. But almost every Monday at 3 o'clock to review the game that's just been played. And there will be plenty of time to look ahead, although we'll do a little bit of that. And we're just thrilled to be here and have the opportunity to do this. And so I really want to start with Tyler because we need the perspective of a player.
Yep.
So I violated one of my own cardinal rules yesterday.
I heard this.
Yeah. In the break between the third quarter and the fourth quarter. See, I anticipated that if the Cowboys weren't winning by about 75-2
That's right.
At halftime, that there would be restiveness among the public. So what was the score at halftime? I mean, at the third quarter?
It was 10-6 at the end of the third quarter. Let's see.
Oh, here it is. It was 24-6.
24-6, so only an 18-point lead at that point.
So I said, I wonder what's going on Twitter. And I rue the moment that I gave into that impulse.
You know better.
I do.
Every time he does it, he just makes himself mad.
It's so true. It's totally true. In Hebrew, the word is yetzer hara, for the inclination of us that is not good, that tries to get us to speak to our lesser part of ourselves, and I gave in.
I'll say this, though, Brad. I think some of us benefited from that because of the energy that was enacted by you being fired up from all the Twitter feed. Not that you're not passionate normally.
Did I sound energized after I read that?
There was a different energy, I'll say that.
I was so aggravated. I'm not kidding. I will admit it, because what I saw on Twitter was, I am really concerned about this defense. These guys can't cover. They're not...
6 points. 6 points.
Now, fair enough. The Dolphins caught passes like they were actually real fish with no hands and gills instead from time to time. I thought they had a touchdown wrongly taken away from them on a pass in what would have been the second quarter.
Yeah, that was one that Brian Flores, the head coach of the Dolphins, definitely should have challenged.
I could not believe he didn't throw that red flag out. I mean, even if you're wrong, that is close enough to sacrifice a timeout for. I mean, come on. Like, in a game that you're not supposed to win, you've got to give yourself every opportunity to be in the game. And at that point, you're in the game. Like, why would you not have done that?
Yeah, and I can tell you that live. It was right in front of me on the sideline because it was over on the Cowboys sideline, and I was standing at about maybe the 10-yard line. And live, I thought that he caught it. And in fact, there are 7 officials on the field, and the side judge had his hands up signaling touchdown. The back judge, who was the one that that is behind the defense, in this case he's underneath the goalpost because the Dolphins were in the red zone. He was the one signaling no good, signaling incomplete, but the side judge had his hands up until the back judge came over and was signaling incomplete. And I thought, oh my goodness, they're gonna look at this and it's gonna count.
So anyway, those things happen in the course of a game. Yeah. Cowboys were fortunate on that one, and I thought one other call, the offside on the onside kick, we weren't sure we saw that. They were not so fortunate on some other ones. I thought there were a couple of fouls that I didn't see. Thought they'd lost a touchdown, which they immediately got back when they called holding on Connor Williams, who I did not think held the guy because he ran past him too fast. No. So here's the point. The players, and I talked to a lot of players during the week before the game, and I talked to guys who went to big schools, talked to Travis Frederick. Who was the worst team in the Big Ten when you were at Wisconsin? He said, probably Indiana. I didn't tell Babe because Babe went to Indiana. He said, probably Indiana. I said, okay, Wisconsin is playing Indiana. Are you going to try to tell me that you're getting as excited for that game and as focused at like Wednesday or Thursday as you would if you're playing Michigan? His answer was essentially the same one that I got from other guys, which was, this is an unusual team we have here. They're really focused on everything that they have to do from day to day. But noon games, at whether it was Texas Stadium or AT&T Stadium, you have to generate your own energy.
That's right.
And the Dolphins were bad. Brad, shut up and let him answer the question. From a player's perspective, what's it like when you know you're the better team and you're going into a game that you are overwhelmingly expected to win, and you have to generate? You can see on tape that you're better than. What's that like? What are they going through when they're going on the field?
So a couple factors. Number one, this is the NFL, so it doesn't matter if it's an 0-16 team. They can win at any particular point in the season. They can win a game. I mean, you look at 2015. We were 4-12. It was a really rough year. But you look at every single one of those losses. Outside of 2, I believe, it was within 7 points. It was within 1 score. And so at any point, so I think anybody that's in the NFL that overlooks a team is doing themselves and their team a disservice. Coach Garrett, I know, does a great job with his staff in creating importance of every single week. It is only about the next one. We're not worried about the week after. We're not worried about last week. All we are worried about is this week and doing what we want. Also, the other thing to think about is I think that there's a sense, and again, this is from the outside. I'm not talking to these guys every day, but outside looking in, is there's a sense of momentum that's going on right now because it's a young group. They're starting to experience success, and they really see that ultimate goal of getting to the big show is a reality, and that takes momentum. That doesn't just happen week 10, week 11, week 12, you've got to create that. And so a game like this, it's technically a trap game because you're going to lull people to sleep, but that's when those types of teams, ask New England when they play Miami, how that works out for them over history. It doesn't go well, especially going to Miami, right? But the 12 o'clock game, as you mentioned, that's hard. Energy is just, you're still waking up. You're at the stadium at 8:30. It's just a different atmosphere than the 3:30 game or the night games that we are used to mostly here in Dallas. So I think from a perspective, I watched it and you could see that, yes, there was some energy that had to be created, but I also saw guys playing really hard that cared about it. And that really, to me, is exciting about this team, and exciting that there's youth that they don't know better than to relax. They just go out and play hard because that's all they hear. So from a player's perspective, I didn't see it. I anticipated them being worried about covering the spread. And, as you're a player, covering the spread doesn't really matter. But like you said on Twitter, like the reactions of people saying, oh my gosh, we should have beat them by 40. Well, that means nothing. If you win by 1 point, it's a win in the NFL, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, well, when you talk about the momentum that you see being created, and boy, the run game in particular, this one, over 200 yards rushing, and it's the first time since 1998 with Chris Warren and Emmitt Smith that the Cowboys have had 2 100-yard rushers in a single game. But when you were the fullback and you were clearing space for DeMarco Murray and, had some good offenses then. So what's the key in keeping that momentum going forward? Obviously, it's the health of the line and things like that.
It is.
Emotionally, what are some of the things?
Yeah, so I think it's taking a perspective of being hypercritical, right? Like, yes, we were supposed to win that game, but did we win that game how we were supposed to win it? And I think going back and being very critical and self-evaluate the film. I think the measure of a team and the maturity of a team is when you win games like this, 31-6. How do we go back and instead of just saying, oh, we're going to immediately go on to the next one and we're just going to continue status quo as is? It's now, okay, let's really dive deep Monday and Tuesday, understand, yes, we won, but what could we have done better? How could we have been more efficient? How are our third down conversions? How could those have been better? How could we have been better in the red zone? How could we have had less penalties? Like the things that they really can clean up. And again, from the top man down, he's very, very adamant about pointing out, look, we did great. A win is a win, and that needs to be celebrated. But we also need to be better in a lot of areas. So I think that is how you have to create and continue that momentum, is not, having, plateaus and then climb and then plateaus. We constantly have to be getting better and better, because in week 3, you need to be a whole lot better in week 6, and you need to be a whole lot better in week 16.
They were 4 out of 5 in the red zone, by the way, and that's been one of the biggest differences from a year ago, because they were one of the top red zone teams coming in. Do you remember what it was coming into the game? I had it written down on a piece of paper that's in my game briefcase. They were 5 out of 10 on third down, which is pretty good for over the course of the year, but not as good as they were the first 2 weeks. So, and they're holding the other team on third down. Now, some people who remember you playing fullback may not be aware of the fact that you were a defensive tackle in college, right?
Defensive end.
Defensive end.
Okay. I was as fast as a defensive tackle, but
and pros too, right? It wasn't until you were in the UFL that you switched.
That's right. Yeah. So I played in Canada at defensive end as well, defensive end linebacker. So, which is extra hard because you've got that 1 yard neutral zone that you've got to deal with as a pass rusher.
So I bring that up to let everyone know that you're not just guessing about the different points of view of an offensive and defensive player. Clearly, the Chicks dig the long ball. Everybody has been all excited about the offense for the first 2 games. Understandable, and nothing wrong with it. Don't know if the defense has played up to their own expectations the first couple of weeks. I thought they did better in the second half, but I really thought there's points in games that Babe and Kristi and I talk all the time about. Circle that. That we'll remember that. I thought, as unfortunate as it was, the hit that Jeff Heath put on Alan Hearns was clean. I'm sorry it was Alan.
Yeah.
But you know what? Every one of those players is a human being with a mother somewhere.
That's right.
I thought it was a really good, aggressive, clean hit by Jeff Heath. And to me, that was one of the earliest things that happened that said, come on, fellas, let's be who we are. Did you see it that way? Did you feel that?
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's one of the really cool things about safeties in this league, and it has been for a long time. I work with Darren Woodson. You guys may know who that is. And he was.
I'll look him up. How does he spell it?
Number 28. But the safeties really can set the tone. Like Landon Collins did that in New York for a few years, right? He was that guy that would set the tone. He would really create a mentality for the defense during the game. And that hit, and Jeff has been that guy. Like, look, Jeff has had a lot of criticism over the years. And, is he deserving of that starting spot? Yes, he is, because of, first of all, the intellect that he plays with, right? He knows the game as well as anyone. And then also, like, the mentality that he brings. You go back and watch practice film from his first 3-4 years in the league. He played every practice like he played that play when he hit Alan Hearns. Every single play. And it was frustrating when you're on the offensive side of the ball sometimes because you're not expecting it. But he plays it, and he's deserved that right. And, he has been a highly, highly effective safety for us. And, so that play, but that is one of the most valuable things that he does, is he brings just kind of a hard-nosed mentality to that defense, and it really, trickles down to everyone else. And not that Sean Lee is not a tempo setter, and DeMarcus Lawrence isn't a tempo setter, and Tyrone Crawford is not a tempo setter, but a safety has that ability to come make those electric plays, and that's what that was. And like you said, I was watching the same thing. I was like, Okay, now they're awake.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cowboys Nation doesn't appreciate what a great athlete Jeff Heath is. And he's also one of the guys, I mean, he's a perennial offseason award winner.
Yes.
And when you talk to, and by the way, so is the other starting safety who was out with an injury this week, Xavier Woods. But Mike Woysick, your former strength and conditioning coach, and gosh, Brad, we've known Mike going back to the early 90s, and he is not a guy that tosses out verbal bouquets.
Yeah.
You've got to earn everything you get from Woysick, and yet he'll just rave over Heath and Woods. And so there are just a couple players that win on defense for the offseason awards, and those are the two guys. But the other thing, when you talk about that setting the tone for the game, so that helps force a punt, and the Cowboys get the ball, and they had to settle for a field goal in their first drive. But when they get the ball the second time after Jeff Heath's big hit, that was the play in which it looked like they were going to stall, and that's when Dak made the great play where he was able to hit Witten down the right sideline, where Dak broke to the right, and the defender hesitated just enough, and great communication between Witten and Dak, where as soon as Witten saw Dak do the pump fake, he took off down the sideline. He was heading right for me, and then Dak lofted it over the defender perfectly.
It really was.
And that's that's just got to take forever to come up with something like that.
Yeah.
There's the play right there, and here comes Witten. And
by the way,
that was a fantastic play.
I don't mean to change the
thank you,
subject.
Kyle.
Yeah,
thank you, our
perfect.
producer Kyle, for putting that
I mean, the shiftiness that Witt has shown.
He's faster this year.
What?
He's leaner and faster.
I came out and watched him in training camp, and him coming out of his breaks, I was like, I mean, that's vintage 2012 Witten right there. I mean, he had
a year off.
I know. Yeah.
He had a year off.
And you've had a couple years off now, Tyler, so you can come back.
I'm way slower now, for sure.
So I read somebody, maybe it was Jason even, talking about or it could have been Witt talking about that play, about the way Dak extends plays, and you have to be really alert to. And a little alarm bell went off for me. Not a red flag, but a little bell went off when I read that comment. I remember Terrence Williams saying about Tony Romo once. The thing about Tony that you have to remember as a receiver is that when the play is over, that's when the play starts.
Right.
So knowing offenses the way you do, do you see in this there's just enough difference? I don't want to be critical of Scott Linehan.
Right.
He's had a phenomenal career as an offensive coach. I think they may have tried to protect Dak a little bit, not given him, not put him in positions even to outplay his experience level.
Yeah.
Or I may not know what I'm talking about, but it feels that way.
Yeah.
This just looks a little different.
Yeah.
And because you played with Tony, and frankly, and you and I have had this conversation 100 times, I'm not sure they really let Brandon Weeden be Brandon Weeden in 2015, was it, when Tony got hurt? And, Brandon actually came in and did a terrific job with what they allowed him to do a couple of games, and then everybody got antsy, and
that's right.
And we don't even need to discuss the rest of it. But I kind of felt that they just let him play. I wonder what would happen, and I kind of have the sense that there's a little bit of the things that people loved so much about Romo in what we are beginning to see in Dak. Am I crazy?
Youthful creativeness, I think, is just the difference. And to go quickly back on Scott, the thing is Scott is one of the most intelligent offensive minds in the game. He really, truly is. The challenge that I think Scott faced is Scott was raised in a little bit different of a system and different objective with an offense. So I think that he was trying to operate in one system when he may have had a natural inclination to call a different way.
In Detroit, it's pointed out to me constantly, he ran a mad bomber offense.
Stafford setting records.
They were throwing it up to Megatron all over the place.
A lot of success on the offensive side of the ball. And I say that because you look at the times where it's been bad, he defaults to a certain tendency. And that was the challenge, right? Because that's what he's comfortable with, that's what he knows, and I don't know if the system Jason Garrett's system really allows for all of that to be as effective. To your question now, with Dak and being able to make plays happen with his feet, extend them, make some throws, I think that he's being encouraged. One thing that I don't think people are talking enough about is the effect that Jon Kitna has had on him.
I talk about it every chance I get.
I mean, if you know Jon,
and I love Kellen. I'm a big fan of Kellen Moore.
That's right.
I think that he's being the Kellen Moore that guys played with in Boise.
That's right.
And they'll all tell you that he was like a genius.
That's right.
But if you don't understand what you're about to tell us, the effect that Jon Kitna has had on Dak since Jon was hired back in he would start at the Pro Bowl, right?
Yeah,
that's right.
If you don't understand that, then you're missing. To me, you're missing half the point.
I mean, you can literally just watch the ball come off of his hand, and it's different. Not that he was not talented before, but it just comes off his hand different. I think the leadership training that Jon brings to the table. See, Dak was already the guy, right? He's always been the right guy for this team. I mean, for him to come in the way that he did and fill in the role after Tony got hurt, and then for Tony to handle it the way that he did, he saw something in Dak. He did. And so he has been that guy. He's handled himself the right way off the field. He's been a leader in the locker room. He's done all those things. But that doesn't mean that he can't elevate his leadership skills, his quarterback ability, and that's what Jon has done here. And I mean, it's been so apparent, and his confidence in it. And that's what one thing, like, he made that bad throw across his body, throwing the pick, right? That was it was a bad decision, but he made it confidently. And that's a difference in what I think we've seen him do in the past is, he was really trying to make a play, but in the past it might have been like a little bit of hesitation so the ball comes off wrong. Well, he put it in there, and if he was going to be wrong, he was going to be wrong. It was Brett Favre-esque. And so that's what I think that one thing that the combination of Kellen and Jon Kitna have done for him is really elevate his confidence, his leadership skill, and his physical tools has been elevated to a new level.
So let's talk more about Kellen Moore, because his first year with the Cowboys was your final year with the Cowboys, right?
Right?
And so what were your initial impressions of Kellen when
we went to Boise, so I didn't like him off the bat. So Fresno and Boise, we were bitter rivals. I guess it would be a rivalry to us because we couldn't beat them, but they beat us all the time.
They probably didn't even know you were on the schedule, right?
No, never did. But yeah, so
now, let me say, did he come in as one of Linehan's boys? Was that a perception?
Well, I mean, he
fairly
did.
Fairly or unfairly?
So if we're being honest and transparent,
yes.
it was there. I mean, it wasn't the underlying theme, because once you had a conversation with him, or were in a meeting room with him, or on the practice field with him, you knew exactly what it was, because he immediately became a coach on the field. Like immediately, like week one, people are asking him, okay, well, what does he mean by this, or how do I do that, or where do I break this route off? I mean, so many detailed questions that he could just rattle off. So he got it. But yeah, initially it was like, okay. But you get to know him, and I mean, it's plain as day, and he's just continued to grow that presence in the locker room, now on the coaching staff, and it's been really fun to watch him.
Yeah, but because he looks so young, and it's Jason Garrett who called him the paper boy, and then Troy Aikman on national TV calls him the pizza boy. So does that belie his true nature, or what's he like when?
So he's very mild mannered. Yeah, he's very mild mannered. I mean, even in one-on-one settings, but I mean, very personable, and there's sometimes
he's actually got a nice little sense of humor.
He does.
He really
does. Very witty. He's very quick, and he'll catch you by surprise because of the subtleness of it.
So dry.
Yes.
Oh my
absolutely.
gosh! You know what? We'll prepare this for a future podcast. But his commercial is the calendar. Now let me say. Oh my goodness! So
he was at Boise.
It's up in Boise, and it's a current one. It came out maybe about a year or two ago.
Okay.
And Kellen walks on water in Idaho, and anybody with Boise State. If I ever want anything on social media or anything with what we do for DallasCowboys.com or did with 5 Points Blue, just put Kellen Moore, and you've got, I mean, thousands.
Immediate Idaho presence.
Thousands of people. But anyway, it's a commercial for a car company, and he comes in, and there's like this board meeting. He's like, guys, I've got a marketing idea for you. It's the calendar, and he spills it out on the thing, and it's these calendars, but it's only 11 months because he was number 11.
Yeah.
And so then there's
it's all pictures of him.
It's all pictures of him, and it's like these cheesecake kind of
like
ones.
The fireman's calendar.
It's a fireman's calendar, but with Kellen Moore.
Except it in goofy garb.
That's awesome.
But it's
really
hilarious,
but it
and
shows
that's
his sense of
really
humor.
what he's like. But it's great to see him have such success, and the offense have such success early on in the season.
So one of the things about these coaches, in my experience, is that the more good players they have, the smarter they are.
It's weird how that works.
I told Gary Brown yesterday when he was leaving the locker room with 200-yard rushers, I said, "Well, you're the smartest coach here this week, aren't you?"
Genius. I mean, you know the game the best. You coach them the best drills in the offseason.
Look what you did. So, and that's week to week too. So that kind of gets me to the variety of personnel, because I think there's an interesting thing that's happening. We've seen such growth from Michael Gallup.
Yep.
And now he is hurt. He's not there. So Amari Cooper, I think we understand that. Can't figure out why he and John Gruden didn't work. But why would you have Amari Cooper? And when you talk to him,
don't ask a question you don't want the answer to.
Oh, now I didn't. I really now I
don't have the answer. I don't have the answer, but we're just glad he's here.
Well, you got an opinion that you don't want to share.
We had the answer, and it was the first 7 games of last year.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, here's the thing about Cooper. His physical skills you can see.
Yeah.
And Babe and I were talking about this, waiting for him to come do the TV locker room show, the postgame show yesterday. I don't know when I have met a more reserved, intellectual wide receiver. They tend more to be more Michael Irvin-ish and nobody's. I stand second in line to nobody for my love of Michael Irvin, but he's a different personality than Cooper. And Amari Cooper is. There's a lot of them that are smart. He's intellectual. He is analytical and very soft-spoken and thoughtful. Yeah. Thoughtful. He listens to your question and gives the answer that he intends to give. Now, why do you not want that?
I don't know. I truly don't know, but I don't really care to have the answer because he's here now. And
Well, how many teammates did you have in the locker room playing chess on a daily basis back in the day, like Amari Cooper does?
Like the physical chess or on his phone chess?
No. He and Cheeto Awuzie have an ongoing chess.
Yeah.
They locker next to each other,
and they
have an ongoing chess game.
I think the most intellectual game I saw played in the locker room was Words with Friends. Like that was the only one.
And some of those
was
words
just to get through the cold.
And we probably couldn't repeat some of those words. But I've got into all that to bring up actually Randall Cobb.
Yeah.
Because I'm chastising myself for not having paid closer attention to the total football player Randall Cobb was in Green Bay.
Yeah.
And now, when they signed him, you're looking for who's going to take Cole Beasley's place in the slot. Oh, okay, Randall Cobb was good. Well, I don't think I really understood what a complete football player Randall Cobb is. At least it appears that way to me. Physicality, another really intelligent guy.
Yeah.
And explosiveness. And what do you see when you see him? And what do you see in him that they probably haven't even had the opportunity to incorporate yet?
Yeah, so I don't have the stats in front of me, but I know last year there was a catch percentage that was not ideal for a receiver, especially a slot receiver, right? He didn't look good statistically. But ask this coaching staff what he's done to us over the years and the catches he's made against us. Coaches don't forget that. And now when players are signed, it's not done just by the front office. It's not just done by Will. It's not just done. Coaches will go lobby for players that they've played against that they've had trouble covering, that has made huge impacts on the game, and he has been that guy for us. And you ask the Chicago Bears, the same thing. I mean, he makes really big plays in really pivotal times. And physically, I mean, he has all of the tools. I mean, Cole Beasley was something special, right? He could do things with his body coming in and out of breaks that I've never seen done before. But I mean, Randall Cobb's not far off of that, and he is a complete player. Not saying that Cole's not, but I'm saying that he complements that position really well. And you can line him up on the outside to do some things as well because he is versatile. He's been in a system that he has to do a lot of different things.
It really is interchangeable parts. You can line up Cobb outside, but you can take Cooper and line him up on the inside. And really the biggest difference this year, just watching from the sideline, is it's not just broken tackles, and it's mainly Randall Cobb who's, being physical and breaking some of these tackles. But there are so many more yards after catch this year, and I point to a couple of things for that. Dak's improved accuracy because of all of the work that he's done in the offseason with Jon Kitna, and also Kellen Moore, the way you scheme it up. And it just seems like we're getting more receivers with the ball on their hands and some open space and really adding up the the yards after catch. Or rack, as Michael Irvin used to call it. He'd go up in practice, rack, run after catch.
Yeah, and you see a lot more catches in space than we saw a lot more contested catches over the last couple of years, right? Part of that, too, is Dak's decision-making ability. It's faster, so he's hitting them when he needs to be hitting them, coming out of breaks, anticipating where the ball needs to be, and he's putting it there, as opposed to, a split second later and maybe on the back hip. There's a huge difference to a receiver if you're coming out of a break and the ball is where it needs to be so you can stay in stride and continue to run. And that's what we're seeing a lot with these receivers is catching the ball and continuing to run because Dak is putting it on time and in the right spot.
I always love having Babe tell the story about when he was a rookie in Washington and the great Jerry Rome, who was a tremendous quarterback in the NFL, including for the Cowboys, was his quarterback coach, and they were running a drill in the spring, and they came back to watch the practice film, and Babe had passed up a pass, and Jerry Rome, God rest his soul, said, "Babe, why didn't you throw that ball?" And he said, "Well, Coach, he's not open." And Jerry Rome said, "Son, that's open in this league." And that's right. What you're describing is what Dak is starting to understand.
That's right.
This is Radioheads with Tyler Clutts and Kristi Scales. I'm Brad Sham. We'll be right back.
While a player can look good on paper, it's when he's out on the field that you really find out what he's made of. That's why the Cowboys rely on more than just stats and scouting reports when building their team. When picking a tractor, it's why you should rely on more than just specs and features. You've got to take it out and put it to the test. The Cowboys did when they named John Deere their official tractor. Experience one for yourself. Visit myjohndeeredealer.com/football.
Do you want the most interesting, up-to-the-minute Dallas Cowboys news straight from the Star in Frisco? How about exclusive and on command? That's right, news and nuggets you can't find anywhere else. With our exclusive Cowboys content on Alexa, you can have all the answers, secrets, stories, and more. What's Stephen Jones thinking during a game? What's Joe Looney's favorite pregame meal? We take your questions to Cowboys players and coaches, and you can hear the answers directly back to you. Just say, Alexa, open Dallas Cowboys.
Want to use what the pros use? How about the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black? Right now, you can get the Jack Black Starter, a curated collection of Cowboys locker room favorites for just $10 with free shipping. The starter includes 4 Jack Black skincare favorites, plus a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Go to getjackblack.com/Cowboys and use the code word TEAMJB. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys. The Jack Black Starter, $10, free shipping.
The excitement of Dallas Cowboys football is back at AT&T Stadium.
The place is going crazy in Arlington, Texas.
Don't miss your chance to see the Cowboys live when they host their NFC East rivals, the Eagles, Giants, and Redskins, plus the Green Bay Packers and more.
Elliott works his way through and walks the dog.
Single game tickets are on sale now. Get them before they're gone.
First and goal, quarterback sneak. Prescott pushes up the middle. Touchdown.
Visit DallasCowboys.com to get your tickets today.
Back to Radioheads.
And thanks for being with us. This is our inaugural edition of Radioheads. I'm Brad Sham with Kristi Scales, former Cowboys fullback Tyler Clutts. We are going to be here almost every Monday at 3 o'clock talking about what just happened. Good, bad, or indifferent. Looks like there's going to be more of the good than the bad. There will definitely be some indifferent. That's just the nature of the game. And we are delighted to have you whenever you are joining us on DallasCowboys.com, and you can do that all the time. I wanted, before we get away from the Cowboys win over Miami, I want to have Tyler talk a little bit about what happens at halftime. Babe is very fond of saying, stop talking about halftime adjustments. You only got 12 minutes, and you're making adjustments all game long. There was a big deal a couple of years ago about halftime adjustments, so I started asking guys, tell me what happens at halftime. Well, the clock starts running at the 12 minutes, the instant the half is over.
Yeah.
By the time everybody gets in the locker room, goes to the bathroom, gets a drink, has an orange peel slice, whatever
Half
it is,
a peanut butter and jelly sandwich,
right?
Yeah.
And the coaches take their time to meet with each other, and the position coach comes out and talks to you. Maybe the coordinators you haven't got time for adjustments very much. But did you hear anything, Kristi, yesterday about somebody having said something, whether it was Jason or whoever it was at halftime?
No.
I got a whiff of, and I'm not sure who it was.
But again, the Cowboys, it was just 10-6 at halftime, a 10-6 lead. And again, the Dolphins are saying, hey, we missed some scoring opportunities there. And the Dolphins go into halftime feeling pretty good about themselves.
Yeah. So Tyler, what have you ever been in professional football? Part of something that happened at halftime that actually made a difference?
I think so. I don't think you can discount it, because anytime you can regroup, like you see, like in really big games, you'll see entire teams come over to the sideline. The head coach will speak to them, right? It's the same concept. Like strategically, are there a ton of changes and we're making all these adjustments? Not really, because like you said, the coaches are meeting, then they come back, the position coaches will talk for a second, and then it's a fire drill running through from the offensive side of the ball. It's a fire drill running through, okay, our next 10 plays, this is what they're going to look like if they do this. And if there's one or two really big points that they need a player or two to understand, then they'll get those out. But there's not full on adjustments and, okay, hey, we had this, and then now we're completely shifting and we're doing this. So really halftime is more of an emotional recharge. Like, okay, guys, you need to hear this. We're close, or we're getting our butts kicked and we shouldn't, or, hey, keep the pedal down. We got to keep going. Whatever. It's an emotional recharge. Defensive side of the ball, you hear Marinelli talk. Very different. It is highly emotionally motivating on the other side.
Say more.
Yeah, we can't. It's a PG-13
we don't
show.
We don't have to repeat verbatim. We just like to fill in some of the blanks.
I'll say this. I know sometimes we would have to huddle up in a corner just so we could hear our coordinator, our offensive line coach give the adjustments.
Override.
Yeah.
Well, whatever was said by Kellen or Jon Kitna or Jason Garrett to the offense, it worked, because you talk about coming charged up. So the Cowboys get the ball. They had won the coin toss and they deferred. So they get the ball to open the second half, and they're only up by 4. And then come right out of the gate and hit Randall Cobb for the 74-yard touchdown.
Yeah.
Which was negated, unfortunately, by penalties. It was actually offsetting penalties. So Connor Williams got called for the questionable holding call, which Brad alluded to earlier. But then the Miami defender had the face mask penalty. So there goes your touchdown. But the Cowboys responded. You would think, a little bit of a letdown after losing out on that score. But then Dak hits Devin Smith for Devin's best play of the game for 34 yards, hits Randall Cobb again for 20 yards, and then the Amari Cooper 19-yard TD. So I thought that was quite a statement where you come out and you hit the big play. It's taken away from you in the stands. You could just feel everybody kind of deflated because you had this jubilation, and now it's gone. And yet the offense just stayed right with it. I thought, and then defensively, Cowboy defense comes out for the first play of the Dolphins' second half on offense, and that's when Robert Quinn gets his sack.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and so maturity, right? Like that whole sequence on offense that shows maturity and bouncing back, right? A game is closer than maybe you think that it should be. Something gets taken away from you very easily. You can say, man, nothing's going right. Like, we're not doing it. But they responded back, and then it wasn't big play. It was really efficient plays. I mean, there was, obviously the few catches there were big chunks of yards.
But they were chunk plays.
But they were chunk, right? It wasn't a big, we're going to go over the top and we're going to try to respond. It was the right call at the right time. And then part of it too, and back to the halftime adjustment, is that, like, for Dak, right? He was much stronger in the second half, right?
That's why I'm asking about it.
Yeah. And sometimes it's Jon Kitna or Kellen or Jason saying, you're good. Just relax. Take a breath. Like, and I think of that. I said he was confident earlier, and I may be speaking out of both sides of my mouth here, but he was that throw across his body on the run, right? That was trying to make something happen, which I love it. Like, I really do. But like, it's also trying to make something happen instead of taking what's there and doing the right thing. And so sometimes it takes a coach saying, you're good. You got this half, and then I believe in you. I know it. And then to know that you have that confidence, to know that your coaches are behind you no matter what, even though that first half didn't look like the previous 2 games, we got your back. You're good. Don't worry about it. And sometimes that peace allows you to go out and play faster and better.
Jason Garrett says all the time, no, and no, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what you're talking about.
That's right.
I think he's gotten to the point where he knew.
Yeah.
He knew almost from the beginning.
Yeah.
And they did a great job in 2016 of giving him to work with what he could handle.
That's right.
And now he knows that he knows.
That's right.
And he can do a little bit more.
That's right.
So, quick word about the offensive line, maybe, because I think Connor Williams, there's a whipping boy. Everybody's got to be a whipping boy, got to have one. Connor Williams, to me, is a better player, and Lyle
100%.
Collins, I think, is one of the most improved players on the team.
Yep.
Through the first 3 games. What do you see when you look at those guys?
So Connor definitely. So, yeah, he had 1 or 2 plays that his name was called out. But as opposed to a year ago, how much were we talking about it then? I mean, he is so much more improved. He's so much stronger. He's more stout. He's passing off games. Like, when you're talking about offensive linemen, unless you're seeing like Tyron run down the field and, keep in front of Zeke and you're like, oh my gosh, that guy's a freak because of what he can do. Like, you talk about them then. But when you talk about offensive linemen, it's like a long snapper. Generally, it's not good. It's either a penalty or you allowed a sack or you missed a block. That's generally when you're talking.
Have you been a long snapper?
Actually, didn't you have to fill in Chicago when you were with the Bears? You got called in the middle of a game or something?
Yes, yeah, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done.
Seriously.
Story. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Another story, another time. But
okay, count on that.
Yeah. But so this offensive line, I mean, really, like, we're talking about the line of scrimmage moving. You talked about it in the game quite a bit, right? That line of scrimmage moving. Like, those are the things you want to hear from your offensive line. And very rarely are we hearing the really bad things that are happening. Now, you go to the other side of the ball or watch that Cleveland game last night, like, you heard a lot about the offensive line, right? There was a lot of bad things to talk about. But this group, and, Connor is following Zach around all the time from what I hear. I don't know. Connor actually just met his parents last week. Great people. But he is really trying to learn and follow.
That's a good one
Travis
to learn from.
And Zach and those guys, because they do play the game right. They are very collected in what they do, and you don't see the ups and downs. Everything is really consistent with those guys. But he's doing things right, and he still has a long way to come. And I think you talk to Tyron, he's like, I got a long way to come. You talk to Zach, you talk to Travis, you talk to Lael. They have a long way to go, but they are going in the right direction, and they are far and above all of offensive lines in the league. Yeah. So I would be encouraged, and I would not point out Connor as a weak link. He may be the less progressed offensive lineman that we have, but look at what you're basing it off.
Yeah. I mean, he was an offensive tackle in college, and he's only had 1 full off season with Wojcik and Coach Besh and all of the guys. And what a difference physically.
When I stand next to Tyron, I can't function either, so I don't know how he does his job.
I remember asking Mark Colombo last year when in the spring of 18, when Mark was the assistant offensive line coach, and it was actually just before OTAs, so there's a period of time when coaches, this is so stupid, but there's a period of time in the spring when coaches are not allowed to coach players.
Yeah.
And they're in the building with them, and they can talk to them, but you can't coach them.
You can't be on the field.
There can't
be a football on the field.
Right. Yeah. So I asked Colombo one day, hey, what do you think of Connor Williams? Last year. Mm-hmm. And at this point, he still can't work with him.
Yeah.
He said, the guy is driving me nuts. He's asking me, tell me about this. What do I do about that? And I have to tell him, slow down. I can't do this with you yet, but I promise we will. So I think that was a foreshadowing of what you're talking about right there.
Exactly right.
And you mentioned meeting Connor's family. I'd like to thank his mom, Debbie, because she helped us with Dallas Cowboys in the Community Relations Department back at the end of the preseason, we did an event called the Parents Clinic. And so Debbie came and spoke. We had a panel discussion where we had our doctors, our nutritionists, and then we had Debbie speak to the parents of the young football players, the youth football players, as a football mom.
Yeah.
And, of course, Connor and his family, they're from Coppell.
That's
and so
right.
we really appreciate Debbie taking part in that.
So we got about 30 seconds left. We know that the public narrative this week will be, okay, well, now we're going to find out. But we won't really because Drew Brees isn't playing.
Yeah.
Did anybody watch them yesterday? What will the players' approach be? How will it differ going into a game in New Orleans?
Well, I mean, this is an NFC game, so it matters, right? Every game matters, but an NFC game really does matter because, you've got wins, and then you've got conference wins, and then you got divisional wins, right? So everything, it can come back to you later on. So it does matter. But, I mean, it's a good team all around. I know the driver is not going to be playing, and I have so much respect for him as a player. I could go on forever, but it's a good defense, and they've got really, really explosive weapons. So you can't sleep on any of them. So I know that going into this week, everything is going to be serious. But again, the mentality of having momentum, and we got to continue to build. We can't take a step back because we can't afford it.
Have fun with it, everybody, and remember, it's week 4.
That's right.
Week 4 of 17. For Kristi Scales and Tyler Clutts, I'm Brad Sham. Join us again next week on Radioheads.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this,